Hey guys, it's Karina with Karina Loves to Plan. Welcome back to my channel. So here I am back with my currently inked for July, as well as a quick glimpse into my June progress report and update. Let's get started. So the progress report is where I keep track of anything that I've purchased or sold when it comes to inks and pens. So here is my progress update so far. So for the number of pens, I purchased 4. Yes, I purchased 4 pens in the month of June, which is way more than my 1 pen a month. So the 4 pens I purchased were the Esterbrook SD in Rainforest, which I bought off Reddit. And then the second pen was the pastel primary manipulation from Just Turnings in Australia, which is just stunning. I cannot wait to receive that. And then the last 2 were 2 pens that I purchased from Zodiac Pen Company. It was an abalone as well as a primary manipulation from Jonathan Brooks or Carolina Pen Company. Cannot wait for those to arrive. Then I had received 2 pens, which is different from purchasing pens because you purchase pens one month and they don't come the next month or until the next month. So I received my Esterbrook SD Rainforest as well as my Zodiac Pen Co. Waterlily Koi, and I will do a separate video on that. And I sold 2 pens this month. I sold my primary manipulation by Pens by Casey, and really that was to help fund the primary manipulation from Zodiac Pen Co. And then I sold my TWSBI Diamond 580 in Smoke Rose Gold, which had a fine stub nib. So now on to the inks. I had purchased 1 ink bottle, and it's from Dominant Industry, although I did write DA here, but it's Dominant Industry Autumn Forest, because it's just so gorgeous. And then I wrote down that I had 8 samples gifted to me, but I'm going to go back here shortly and correct that because it was way more. And then I had 22 samples that I used or gave away because of 30 inks, 30 days. So my totals are 28 pens with 4 more on the way. I do have plans to sell at least another one before the end of July, so be on the lookout for that. And then in terms of inks, I have 37 ink bottles, which is an increase of 1 from last month. And then for ink samples, I realized I actually received 17 ink samples for the whole month of June. So that leaves me at 51 total. So there is the progress reporter update for June. I find this really, really helpful in terms of curbing my spending, but also keeping track of what I've purchased and things like that. So let's move on to the currently inked. The first ink that I'm using this month is Waringal Don Quixote, and I have it, well, before I show you the pen that it's inked up in, I'm actually going to do my organic imperfect circles with the sample ink file. I thought this was a better way to show off what the ink really looked like rather than just the writing sample. I wanted to show off the details of the shading and a bit of the shimmer if I do have that. So then I have it inked up in my Pilot E95S with a fine nib, and this has a 14 karat gold nib, and I really like the way that this writes. It's such a smooth experience, but also the pen itself is really classy and beautiful to look at. So if you are in the market for your first ever gold nib pen, highly recommend the Pilot E95S because it is actually a very well priced gold nib pen, and it is a lovely, lovely writing experience. And so far the ink looks just gorgeous in it, and it's a beautiful, beautiful match for this pen. The next ink is Taranishi Opera Rose, and I'm going to put a tiny drop on the paper there and then use my sample ink vial to swirl it around on the page to create that circle. And I really love this method of swatching because you'll be able to see the shading in here beautifully. And I have this inked up in my Esterbrook SD in the Petrified Rainforest. I think it is a perfect match. I know that this ink to me looks like a dusty pink, but actually when I pair it with this pen, it looks more coral, which I feel like this pen is more of a coral colored pen. And I wrote down here that this Petrified Forest had a fine nib, but it actually has an extra fine nib, so that is my mistake. And once again, this is inked with Taranishi Opera Rose, and this is the one that I'm actually using in my A6 5-year journal, and I have loved writing with it so far. The next ink is Herbon Ombre de Bermanie, and this one is one I haven't used in a while, but I wanted to use kind of an orangey yellow ink for the summer. So I then go ahead and place a drop on the paper and swirl it around with the ink sample vial, and look at that. I mean, it's not a perfect match for this pen, which is my Waterlily Koi from Zodiac Pen Co. I haven't done an unboxing of this pen yet, but it is coming, don't worry. And this pen has a fine cursive smooth italic nib on it, and I absolutely love it. I had the nib ground by my one and only Jack Hernandez, and he did a fantastic job with this nib. And the two together, the ink, you know, the orangey yellow with all of that shading, and then you combine it with the fine cursive smooth italic, it's got such great, it's a great writing experience because the nib itself is smooth yet slicey, and that's what I love, the cursive smooth italic, that sliciness of the smooth italic. It's like a sharper stub nib. I love it. The next ink is Diamine Meadow, and I absolutely love this green. I think it's a perfect spring and summer green because it's just bright and happy. As you can see here, when I do my little swirling with the ink sample vial, it's got great shading, but also Diamine has really, really great inks. They're very well behaved, they've got a good flow. And look at how well it matches to my Petrified, oh my goodness, my Esterbrook Esty in Rainforest. Oh my goodness. It's a good thing I'm doing this as a voiceover. So I thought the two were a perfect pairing for this month. Now, this pen originally had a broad nib, but thank you to Creating Cute Art on YouTube and on Instagram for reaching out, and she traded her fine nib for my broad nib, and now I am so happy with it and love this ink and this pen together. I think it is a perfect match, and I'm really looking forward to using it the rest of this month. Next is Colorverse Alpha CMA, and this ink I've had for about 1.5 years now. Purchased it off of PenChalet, and I love the bluish gray muted tone of this blue. One of the things is this ink is notoriously dry, so I'm placing it in my Pelikan M605 with an extra fine nib, and this nib, the Pelikan nibs in general, are broader than your regular, even Western nib. So an extra fine in a Pelikan is more like a fine or even close to medium. But I love the wetness of this nib. It really helps contribute to the wetness of this dry ink. So I'm so glad that I put the two together, and I'm looking forward to be able to use this blue. I have not used this in a while, but I really like this shade of blue. The next ink is Diamine Earl Gray, and I can't believe that this is really the first time I'm using this. I've been wanting to use this since I started as in the fountain pen hobby, but never ended up buying it. And thankfully it was sent to me by Kat Decker. Thank you again, Kat, for sending this to me. And I have this inked in my Platinum 3776 in Laurel Green. I wanted to place an ink in this pen that was slightly wetter because this pen has a 14 karat gold fine nib. And the fine nib on this is finer than the Pilot nib. And this is a very stiff nib as well. So if you're not used to the stiffness of a platinum nib, it can take some getting used to, but now that I've written with it for a while, I do actually enjoy the experience, but I do prefer it with slightly wetter inks, and I believe Diamine Earl Grey is going to be great with this. And look at the shading in that swatch. You're not going to see it too much in the writing sample because it is such a fine nib, but it is a really gorgeous ink. And then we have Ferris Wheel Press Grape Ice Pop, once again sent to me by Kat, and placing a small drop here and swirling it around with my ink sample vial. This is such a simple way to get a bit of artistry and creativity into the ink swatches. I really love doing that. And when I first inked the Pilot Vanishing Point, I wasn't sure how wet this ink was going to be, but the two combined feel like a fire hose to me. It is very, very wet in the 14K fine nib in my Vanishing Point. So I'm looking forward to seeing how quickly I can use up the ink that is in the Con 40 converter in this pen. We'll see, but I'm looking forward to just seeing this on the page. It looks a lot darker in the writing sample than it does in the swatch, but it's still a very pretty purple, and you guys know how much I like my purples. So there is my currently inked lineup for July. I'm really liking it, but I also really wanted to make sure that I'm actually using my bottled ink versus just all of my samples, and I think this is a good mix of that. All right, what are you guys inking up for the month of July? After the 30 inks, 30 days, I was so glad to be able to have used all of my pens, and now getting to just use 7. It's a huge adjustment for me, funny enough to say, but I'm looking forward to using all of these pens. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. If you like this video, please leave me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching and have a great day.